I am talking about getting your prototype in front of others today. But as I put it together and I was thinking about the main purpose of prototyping, I added a little bit more just about prototyping because I think once you guys get the sense of what prototyping is all about, that is the fastest path to experiencing your idea, and that it can be done very quickly when you kind of shift your mindset from making something perfect and just making something that you can experience, you're going to have a big breakthrough in your ability to move ideas forward in your organization. So this is not just for your Catalyst project, but anything you're trying to move forward in your organization. If you get better at prototyping and testing things early and often with the people who are involved, the stakeholders, et cetera, you're going to make so much faster progress. You're going to learn so much faster. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. So let's get started. All about getting your prototype in front of others. So I want to start with a little video. And this is a gentleman who joined Google's Advanced Concepts group. And he's going to talk a little bit about early prototyping of those Google Glasses they did. Now, as you know, those Google Glasses didn't go anywhere. They never really got them the kind of acceptance they would. But I don't want you to focus on any of these examples I show as the content of, the type of thing they're prototyping. And what he does good in this video is he talks about the principles that are at work. And he kind of really helps the audience or you shift your mindset about what's possible in terms of trying an idea.
So in order for you to understand that, I'm going to give you a quick little run-through about what rapid prototyping is about so you can see what those concepts are. Now, up here is a product called Google Glass. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to see digital information overlaid on your real life and be able to stay in your real life as you walk about. 3 years ago, I joined Google and had the opportunity to go work on this product, but nothing existed. And I have just one simple question for the audience at this point, and don't shout it out if you already know the answer. But how long do you think it took to build the first working version of this experience, seeing digital information on your physical world as you walk about? Any guesses? Months? Anything else?
3 months.
3 months? Okay, great. Well, the actual answer is 1 day. And the way that it looked is exactly right here. You may or may not know this person, just anonymous person. And we actually used just really basic household materials. I think actually upon seeing it, almost anybody in this room could build this. So it's a coat hanger, which allows you to, hangs around your neck and the other part rests on your chest. That supports a little thing that comes out holding a plastic sheet, which allows you to see. It's the screen. And then there's a little laptop, which is powering a small projector so that the digital information is in front of you as you walk about. And this helps me highlight a couple different concepts from rapid prototyping. In rapid prototyping, it's important to go as quickly as possible to get a direct experience, because only from a direct experience, you've got to take that quickest path, do you learn the things that you need to learn from the work. And the second rule, kind of related, is that doing is the best kind of thinking. We're so used to thinking before we do a thing. So a normal thing in a business would be to sit down and have 3 months of planning meetings. That's why it takes months to do, actually. But if you were to sit down and start building that day, not only would you start having your plans come together, you would be able to learn what the real problems were. And this is what we did. Now, if these are the rules of an individual prototype, then this is the purpose of the prototyping process overall. Encapsulated in just a single sentence, the purpose of the prototyping process is to maximize your rate of learning on a difficult problem by minimizing the time to try new ideas. And what we're now going to do is we're going to see what happens when we bring this simple concept into the world of entrepreneurship to try to go change what the entrepreneurial experience is. So in the first example, we're going to examine what happens when we take the time to try new ideas down in the context of improving a business. So a lot of you work in business or know people that work in business. And you'd be really lucky if your business tried something new every 3 months, or if you're very, very lucky, maybe once a month. But in this particular situation, we brought people together and we made them try a new business idea every hour. And this is what it looked like. So these numbers on the side are minutes. And within that number of minutes, they needed to come up with the idea, build a prototype, test it with people that didn't know about the prototype, and record everything that they learned. And we did this with 20 different teams. And in an auditorium like this, actually, we broke into 20 different teams. And each one of them had to do this process, not 1 time in a day, but 4 times in a day. So what happened? Well, I'm going to just do a summary because too many amazing things happened. But Devi over there in the top left, he invented a new approach to pasteurizing milk at a small scale to be able to help rural farmers in India. This happened in 1 day. Over in the top right, Shane was able to reinvent his product offering. It's an educational offering for green architecture, and logged 1,500 in new sales in the same day. And probably the most amazing story is Shake, whose business was to grow chocolate beans using the labor of former child soldiers. So convert child soldiers into farmers. He's able to produce these beans. But what he did in that day was launch a new company to take those beans, turn them into chocolate under the brand Liberation Cocoa. And in that same day, he also set up the website, created a board of directors, and was able to go and take orders on the website. So 1 week after that event, I was able to eat that chocolate. It was delicious.
Okay, what are the lessons in that video? The lessons are we think about things taking a lot longer to do or to manifest into the world than is really necessary. We think about it as taking a long time because we don't rapidly prototype much. But what he showed in something like the Google Glasses, et cetera, is that you can mock things up and get to an experience where you learn so much. And that's really the point of prototyping. And what I want to do, no matter what you're prototyping, in here in the picture is an experience prototype. And this young lady is being the computer to show the screens. And this keyboard doesn't really work, but they're able to tap out, and you can tell that the user is intending to type. So this experience helps you think about your solution in a much deeper way. So let's talk about where all this value comes from. Where does the value from putting your prototype in front of others or getting everybody to experience it, where does it come from? Well, first of all, you clarify and make your idea specific when you have to make something. You can kind of talk about it and wave your hands all you want, but until you have to make it, it's not really specific. So just the act of having to go, okay, what are we actually going to make? How are we actually going to do this? Clarifies your idea. So it already moves you forward. It also, you clarify your idea by explaining it to those who are going to try it. And so before you have somebody try your prototype, you always set up a little bit of context. We have a goal of X. We have a goal of bringing more people into this peer support program, for example. And what we learned in our research is this, and therefore we put together a quick prototype that addresses some of those pain points. So just that setting the context helps you clarify what your idea is about, or at least that prototype. Then you learn about your idea by watching what people do with your prototype, their behavior, what they do, right? And that is they'll hesitate, they'll move forward, they'll press the wrong button, they'll respond with a question that you're like, why are you asking that question? And they'll say, oh, I thought this, this, and this. And you're like, oh my gosh, right? So you learn from how they behave or how they react to the prototype. And then you learn about your idea when they talk out loud about your idea. And that outlaid, that's a bad spell check. It happened to me in 2 places. I only fixed one of them. You learn about your idea when you have them talk out loud. So when you have somebody try the prototype, what you want to do, if it's something that they're using or something they're experiencing, you can have them speak aloud of what they're thinking. So I'm looking for this. I'm thinking, why does it have it set up this way? I'm wondering about, my kid who's in childcare, I'm wondering how long this is going to take. That verbal protocol is going to teach you about what matters in the experience of this prototype. Okay? So look at all this value. Again, breaking it down, you realize, wow, why aren't we making things more often to get into it and learn? So you get to learn a lot by building it. No matter how simple it is, no matter how, this again is a Kaiser Permanente, I believe, postpartum, kind of to-do or checklist for moving from post-delivery of the mom and her baby going home. So the other point I want to make today is you often think about your solution or idea in too big of a way. And prototypes usually focus on something pretty specific, or they embody the essence of what your new idea is. And I just want to make a point about using design. That is the intentional crafting or the intentional creation of a specific way of doing something in order to address the pain points or opportunities in your solution. So the question here is, as you think about your prototype, what should we do that would make this offering or this experience worthy of remarkable, right? Worthy of, somebody would tell somebody else about it. The local news will report on it after it comes out, and people start chatting about it. It's like, they did this amazing thing. They're taking a whole new approach to peer recovery services. They're taking a whole new approach to reaching out to community members in need. And it's that unique way or unique thing you're doing that is really the essence of your solution. So really you have to think about not your project of like, what are we going to make, and just kind of randomly think up ideas. Think of ideas that respond to what you learned from people in your research. What did they say they hate about the existing experience? What did they say was a challenge to the existing experience? What are their pain points? Your ideas for your solution should come right out of that. Designers look for those pain points all the time to go, well, and we challenge convention and we say, why do we have to do it that way? People hate filling out all that paperwork at the beginning of their encounter with us. Okay, one idea is let's eliminate all that and start serving them and building our relationship, and then get that intake information over time. That's one simple example of trying to break a convention of what people don't like and trying to redesign an experience so that it brings people in. Doesn't mean you won't have other challenges to solve as you do that, but this is what you want to be thinking of. Ways of doing it that are truly remarkable. So intentionally design it to address that pain point or insight, make it special or unique. So for example, we use this Trader Joe's example, and they realize, kids get bored shopping with their mom, and they grab stuff off the shelf because they're curious and they want to learn about the world. And so they said, well, why don't, instead of just getting angry that we have to restock everything all the time because they're pulling everything off the shelf, let's embed a treasure hunt in their experience. And they can look for things while they're there, and they can have this specific list. And if they find the prize, they get a prize, right? So it's a specific idea that addresses a pain point, and it's remarkable. It's unique. It's interesting. Okay. All right. I want to show another example of this notion of very simple ways of prototyping. And I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember the Palm Pilot PDA, the first PDA that actually worked well. The inventor of it, Jeff Hawkins, wanted to figure out what a computer would need to be like, what it would need to be like if it was a pocketable device. So he went to his garage and cut out a piece of wood, just a piece of wood to fit in his shirt pocket. I don't have a shirt pocket, I'll use my regular pocket. So then he carries that around for months, pretending it was a computer, pretending it was a little personal digital assistant. And he would haul out the block, so he would show up somebody, hey, I wanted to meet with you next Wednesday. And he would pull out the block and go, okay, let me see, next Wednesday. And he would imagine finding that date on the device and interacting with someone at the same time, which is a human factor, right? Which is how to do it in a way that doesn't take too long, that people get frustrated, et cetera. We're clearly still working on all that with our devices today. But he would pull it out and he would imagine, and he would go through that experience. And the other person's like, what are you doing with that block of wood? And he's like, I'm trying to figure out what it's like to have a small computer in my pocket that can hold my contacts and the dates, etc. So he would pretend to look those things up on the block of wood. And occasionally he would print out an interface when he got an idea like I would need to see the calendar in this way, and he would just mock it up and put it on the block of wood. And so it looks something like this. So this became, the first successful version that sold millions and millions. And he did a lot of non-conventional things. He made it a very low-power device. It was very basic graphics, so it would the battery would last a really long time. Everybody else was trying to make high-resolution things that were super fast, and he really focused on that user experience. But to figure it out, he used a block of wood and a stick. That's the importance of prototyping, is thinking through the experience. I hope I'm making that clear. Write something in the comments if any of this resonates with you. So let's talk just quickly about how to conduct a test with your prototype. So just think through, like you did with your open-ended interviews, it's very much the same thing, except now you have something to show or hand or demonstrate to the people. And we understand that this is going to be a little bit remote, which is fine. So you're probably showing things on the screen to other people, or maybe you're acting things out, a protocol between two people. And we'll talk about a couple of those things. So how to conduct a test with your prototype. First, think about what you'd love to test and make a rough version of it. So that's the prototyping part of it, right? So what are we going to make and why? And you're going to be thinking about how somebody else would experience that, or how you could demonstrate that to somebody so that they could experience it. Then you're going to recruit people. So you need to recruit 3 to 5 people. 3 is going to be great. 5 is spectacular, and you'll get maybe extra points at the end of the Catalyst program that you're really getting into this prototyping. But you're going to recruit some people and say, hey, I want to show you this idea we're working on in our Catalyst project. When you meet with them, you're going to describe the context of the prototype like I did earlier. So you're going to say, hey, we're trying to achieve better understanding of the impact our food distribution has in the community. And we want to start gathering data, but we know that gathering data causes a lot of challenges, so we designed this alternative way of doing it, and we'd like to share with you how we're going to do that and get your feedback on it. So you're setting the context. This is all very out in the open. I mean, you're not going to put a paper keyboard or a poster or a web page that you mocked up really quick in front of somebody and hope they think it's real. So see that you're just putting something that is a stimulus for experience and feedback and conversation, rather than trying to make a perfect version of your idea. So that's the big difference. So describe the context, then tell them what you would like them to do. So usually you figure out what task could we have them do where they have to figure something out with our prototype. What's the goal? So it's not, you really shouldn't just be describing your prototype and asking, what do you think? You should say, I'd like you to look at this poster that describes the process we're going to use. And as you're going through it, I'd like you to think out loud. And once you get to the end of it, I want you to describe what we're doing back to us as an example. Okay? And then after that, you could have a conversation with them. Okay, let's talk about what more ideas you have for this thing we shared with you today. So ask them to talk out loud, sharing what they're thinking while they're doing it. And this is a great way to elicit things that are going on in their brain that you don't normally have access to. It's called a protocol analysis, where they're speaking what they're thinking, and that provides a protocol that you can analyze during or after. And just like your open-ended interviews, you want to be patient, and you want to be open-ended in your questions. So if they ask a question, you might say, instead of trying to answer it right away, you might say, why do you ask? Or say more about that question. And they'll be like, well, I was thinking blah, 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 so I was wondering blah, blah, blah. And it gets you more information. So be patient and open to elicit the best feedback. So this is a really quick cheat sheet to give you guys a sense of just the structure of doing a well-done prototype test. Okay? So I'm going to play a little bit of this. This is an example of a prototype test. It's obviously a tablet interface of some sort. You can see on the left-hand side, there's the tasks that they're going to go through. None of this is hidden from the user. The user doesn't think that that's a real tablet. They can see that you're just testing something, but they're doing the actions and playing along, and they're going to be able to tell you, because they haven't been involved in your project, what they think of the idea. So let's just play this real quick.
Okay, so your task now is to open the My EE app.
Okay. I'll put my thumb on there. Cool. Nice. Nice.
And now your task is to register and log in.
Okay.
So little by little, he's just following what he thinks he needs to do to figure out, to get through the interface. And see if there's mistakes, it's fine, doesn't matter. Little ways of representing the interaction with paper. Everybody can do paper.
Well done, you've completed the task.
Yeah.
The next task is
Okay, so
to
you completed
remove
that
the
task.
minutes tile from your home screen.
Uh-huh.
So you can see here, he's not exactly sure how to do it. And so this is starting to give them good information. So I'm going to stop it there. Again, that's a very specific instance of kind of getting through a interactive prototype, right? But the principles, again, are the same no matter what you're doing. And so what I thought I'd do is take 3 or 4 examples from what you guys are working on and think out loud about how you might prototype, or how you think about creating the prototype and getting it in front of people, or doing something with people for them to experience it. Okay? So serving families with an incarcerated parent, I think this is Children's Defense Fund if I'm not mistaken. So the first question is, what is our key insight from interviewing the families with incarcerated parents? What don't they like about the current options, services, ways that people reach out to them? What don't they know about? What have we found out about how they find out about potential helpful services in the community? What would actually be helpful to them? So that's the core question from your research that your research should be answering, that gives you ideas for what to make. And so you could prototype a recruiting call, or maybe even a web page that they get sent to because you're going to run Google ads or Facebook ads or something like that to try to identify and attract people to your offer. But if you're going to prototype a recruiting call, you might say, well, what would be our most effective and meaningful opening line? And what features or values would we highlight as we try to engage them in a conversation? What should that experience of reaching out to them and recruiting them for our services be like? Now, I'm not sure, this is probably not the focus of your project. I'm just taking it as the context and imagining some things for myself. But you could prototype a recruiting call. You could prototype a web page that shows the services. But it can't just, the idea isn't a web page. The idea isn't the recruiting call. The ideas are embedded in how you do those things that respond to what you learned in your research. Does that make sense? Because a web page is not an idea. It's how that web page is set up to overcome the challenges, barriers, objections that they have of engaging in services or knowing what it's about, et cetera. Okay? So the real crux of it is, what is the most meaningful opening line? And then you would do it. Then you would make some calls and say, hi, we'd like to, you could call people. First, you could call people that maybe aren't the direct possible beneficiaries of this service. Or you could go to one of your partner organizations or do a call for recruiting and offer some sort of incentive for experiencing your latest service offering or your latest example of recruiting calls. We're trying to make our services better. And I will tell you that people are always open to helping when people are trying to figure out a better way to serve them. I have never seen in my history difficulty in recruiting people when you're saying we're trying to make the service better for you and we'd love your feedback on what we're working on. Okay, so that's just a little bit of a side. What's another scenario? Gathering data during food distribution. So this is food forward, Venice family. So what's your key insight from interviewing them, whoever them is, your users, the stakeholders? What challenge or pain points does data collection introduce, right? Again, I don't know that this is exactly the focus, but I'm imagining what we're trying to do is gather data and it introduces challenges, and that's what we would know from our research. So maybe one of the things is nobody has time to sit there and answer a bunch of questions. They're trying to go there to get their food and get back to work or get back home, et cetera, and go through the distribution line. Well, maybe an idea is, maybe one of your ideas, again, hypothetical, that you say, well, if we had each person only ask one question of every person they interact with, maybe that's a way to gather 5 or 6 things, 5 or 6 points of data from people who are going through food distribution. And it's not on the burden of one person, and we wouldn't have to do it all in one batch. So just an idea, and then I would try that. I would coach in our next distribution. Everybody knows that you're doing a prototype. You know, you would put maybe a sign up at the next distribution that we're testing a new idea today. Please help out. And people would say, I'd like to ask you a question. And so you figure out some way to try that idea of different questions being asked along the line. Or maybe you set up a table that says, come and get these bonuses, and maybe they're giveaways from local businesses and you say, these things are being made available if you'll answer a few questions for us about the impact of the food distribution on your family life. And so maybe it's about setting up a premium offer in the parking lot where you can actually attract people because there's an exchange of value there. Okay, so that's an example. And one more. Learning to provide open feedback in team meetings. So what did we learn from our interviews? You can see that this is a theme. What makes providing feedback challenging? We should know some answers to that. And maybe here's some things we could try. Again, these are totally not relevant to probably what the team is actually working on in terms of ideas, but it gives you an example of me thinking outside the box a little bit. So maybe we prototype a brutally honest meeting break. What's a brutally honest meeting break? Well, with an air of humor, we stop in the middle of the meeting and ask people to say the most exaggerated thing they could say about how the meeting is going for them. And so in this way, so one of the things maybe you learned in providing feedback is people are worried that what they say are going to hurt somebody's feelings, or they think giving feedback is taboo. And so in this quick prototype, we test this idea of people being able to say really egregious things about how the meeting's going. Oh my God, if you keep droning on about the schedule we need to follow, we'll never get to the meat of the matter, right? And you make these exaggerated. Maybe you do it in the form of your favorite comedian character or TV character that's always complaining or something, right? But you could do that as a prototype to learn about giving feedback. And, oh, by the way, maybe building some relationships and having fun along the way. Or maybe you prototype, the team talked about in sports, coaches give feedback all the time. We don't think two things of it, but maybe we prototype everyone having a coach. So you pair up and you're going to be my coach. And that gives you the permission to blow your whistle at any point and give me feedback about how things are going, or how I handled that meeting, or how I handled that deliverable, et cetera. So I'm just using ideas that are coming out of the research and how we're thinking about our project to prototype possible experiences. Do you see how that works? And none of these are, computer interfaces necessarily, or tangible things that are products that we're designing. They're experiences. And so you're going to have some level of rule or protocol or new way of behaving, new way of interacting with people, what you say to them over the phone, how you send a message, what the web page looks like, all sorts of ideas for testing. Okay, so in summary, what are we trying to do? We're trying to find the quickest path to experience and letting people experience the idea. You're going to learn so much from building that prototype, seeing how people react, seeing to how they think about it, and ultimately the feedback they give. So plan out a new experience or a prototype, figure out how you can try that with your colleagues, no matter how simple, no matter how role-play-ish it is, try it out, and it'll help you think about your solution a lot better.